one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, board and committee reports. John O'Connell, floor is yours.
Okay, under the EPA MS4 stormwater mandate, it's a requirement that we report to the selectmen once a year about what we're up to. And, you know, I suspect that not everybody is totally up to date with where we are. So I'll just go back to 2003, when this thing first happened. It was fairly benign. Doug took care of it very well. Not a lot of expense involved. It was mostly reporting and doing some odds and ends of public education and so forth. And that was a 5-year program. It was up in 2008. It took EPA until 2010 to come out with the next phase, as it were. And when it went out, it was sort of like they ran into a giant power lawnmower. Everybody was screaming at them because we can't afford it, it's too much, and so forth. So they took it under advisement for the next 2 years. We still don't have the new draft permit. We don't have the list of things we have to do for the next 5 years yet. New Hampshire does, and we are told on reasonable authority that we're going to be the same as they are, pretty much. And theirs is worse than what we had before. So nobody was listening to the screams of anguish from the various communities. It's a larger expense than what we have right now. The good news is that people in town, both town officials and citizens, have been absolutely wonderful as far as helping out. I mean, there's a whole a list as long as my arm of people that didn't have to do anything that have done a great deal for us, like Yvonne Buswell of the Parker River Clean Water, Lynette, Lecca, and Marlene has contributed considerably. Steve Fram has gotten stuff out for us with the dump people. And we've got a lot of volunteers for the future work. We're probably going to, right now, if we keep the stormwater program level funded, we're probably okay for the next couple of years, assuming it starts in another year. We should have just about the right amount of money to cover it. What we're going to have to do is buy test equipment and buy the chemicals and reagents to go with it, okay? That doesn't have to happen for a couple of years, so we've got time to start buying the equipment and putting it on the shelf until we absolutely have to start using it. There's 6 parts to this, just FYI. The first one is public education. And what we've done over the past year, some of this in anticipation that we're going to get credit for this under the new permit. We set out stuff in the tax bills in October, just a bookmark, okay? Leslie and the police department are handing out a little blurb on dog droppings and why you should clean them up, pick up after your pet. The dump, Steve is having Marcelo handle, not Marcelo, sorry. The dump guy handle.
You're dating yourself.
Sorry, I'm in the wrong city. Yeah, I'm in the wrong century, I think. Marcelo's been dead for a number of years. Anyway, a little thing that is handed out at the dump as you walk in, and he's doing that every couple of months to those who don't have one yet. And we're doing with a lot of help from a lot of people, we're doing what we're calling a stormwater fair, a public education gig at the Fish and Wildlife, who have been very, very welcoming and very helpful. On Saturday, the 27th of April. I think it's probably safe to bet none of you guys have school-age children, with all due respect, but you've probably got some grandchildren that might like to be there. It's going to be from 9 to 12, and we've got a number of people that have signed up to have exhibits. Parker River Clean Water, Fish and Wildlife are going to have something themselves. Blue Ocean Society have a nice little model of an estuary that shows how um, how water gets polluted. They can, sprinkle water on it with using some household odds and ends of things like brown sugar to show how we pollute water. Boat camp is gonna have a table. They're gonna bring some critters. Coast Guard Auxiliary has a little talking tugboat that will admonish people about throwing trash in storm drains. Merrimack River Watershed Council is going to do something similar. And the second thing is public involvement, and that's pretty much all the free help we're getting from a lot of people that really don't have to help us, but they are.
John, when is that?
Yes, sir.
When is it? When is that?
27th
Of this month?
of this month, yes, sir. Yeah. It's at 9 o'clock in the morning at the Parker River Fish and Wildlife Headquarters. We basically have the display area for 3 hours. And everybody's gonna have a table, and we're gonna have various things. You can pat the critters and ogle the turtles and,
Yeah,
and have them be talked to.
right.
And the idea is elementary school education, which is pretty much 6 to 11. And by the way, it's something important here. We're a joint venture with the city of Newburyport and the town of Rowley, okay? Where Newbury has been doing most of the work, but the pious hope is that we'll get something in return. It's kind of like cooperation leads to graduation. We are encouraged by EPA to work together because watersheds don't necessarily follow political boundaries. And we involved Rowley and Newburyport because they're abutting towns, and they're also part of the Parker River Federal Reservation. Ipswich is too, but they were a little far away for us to, I didn't want to dilute the effort too much. I want to make damn sure that we're getting our credit for it.
Right.
The third one is testing. We've got 7 different tests that have to be done on every one of somewhere between 80 and 100 outfalls. Haven't quite pinned down exactly how many we have. Twice, dry weather flow test, and then a wet weather situation. The fourth thing is pretty much what happens anyway, just siltation for construction jobs, which Doug has pretty much under control. The fifth thing is long-range things. We've got to figure out somehow how we can afford for those detention ponds that we have made people put in. We are not maintaining them, and we will have to try to figure out how we are. It's one of those things. Right now, obviously, we try to get as many people to do homeowners associations as possible. Then it becomes their problem to fix it. But we've got some that are growing small jungles in them that, maybe we can talk the Boy Scouts into chopping down some trees. And this, I'm sure there's a way of doing it, but it's something that we've got to look at. And we are in the process of changing our subdivision rules and regulations and the stormwater and illicit discharge rules and regulations to try to bring them a little bit more in sync in what the best thinking is today for stormwater practice. Today, you simply don't do the curb, gutter, catch basin thing if there's any way around it. If you're in a big city, you have to because there's no room. But we should be doing country drainage here because, we're a country town and we have the room to do it. And it's cheaper for the developer and it's a lot better for us because we got less stuff to maintain. We don't have catch basins that we've got to clean out at $30 a pop once a year. The last thing is our own issues, keeping our own house in order, and that is street sweeping and catch basin cleaning, which Tim is doing already. That obviously needs to continue. There's no special deal there. They are telling us to report what modifications to our infrastructure we can do to improve the stormwater situation. And with one exception, we're looking at working on a rain garden with several people out at the Newbury Elementary School, which is going to help take the runoff from the basketball court at least and give it some treatment. And that's relatively free. We're scrounging. Everybody involved is scrounging on that one. But we probably will be looking for some money at some point. It's a little unclear. They haven't said you have to actually do it. What they say is you got to tell us what you should do. Well, it's not a very big leap to say that at some point after we told them what they should do, they're gonna say, well, do it, dummy, you know? So, any questions on the program? That's kind of where we are at the moment. I tried to be real brief.
Yep.
Anybody can call me or ask me or whatever if you, I'm not that hard to find,
All right.
unfortunately.
That's a lot of work, John.
Yeah, it is a lot of work, actually, and we've had a lot of, again, I can't emphasize too much the way that people have come together on this and given us help. You know, people that are totally volunteers. Yes, Jeff?
Hypothetical.
Yes.
Is there any design ever in the works that might someday, you know, do what it needs to do and not just trap sediments for the sake of, you know, cleaning the impurities
Right.
and the toxins? Because we're starving our marsh for sediment,
Yeah.
we're starving Plum Island for sediment,
Yeah.
and it's just a thought. I wonder if anyone ever thinks about maybe some sort of redesign. I mean, I know storm scepters and stuff, I mean, country drainage seems to me to be a
Well,
pretty good idea.
Country drainage is definitely the way to go. Storm scepters are neat, and where you have no room to do anything else is just what the doctor ordered. I'm not a fan of any of the hard, so-called, the hardware BMP, best management practices, simply because they cost a fortune, they cost a small fortune to maintain and
Yeah.
keep functioning, and the best deal, the smart money says the absolute best deal for stormwater is doing what we're doing already, cleaning catch basins when they need it, and street sweeping. It would be nice if we had a vacuum sweeper. We don't. But even Newburyport doesn't. They sweep the same way we do. Maybe someday we could joint venture with another town,
Yep.
get a vacuum sweeper and share. That is by far better. But the trouble with, you know, I know what you're saying. You definitely need it for the marsh. The problem is that, first of all, that the state has laid requirements on us for getting rid of suspended solids, because guess what? Virtually all of the pollutants are
Contaminants,
attached
yep.
chemically
Yep.
to the suspended solids. So you send the solids down, it's pretty damn difficult to clean them up before you throw them in the marsh.
Yep.
And of course, along with the suspended solids, they're not free of nitrogen and phosphorus, which are, you know, poisonous. They're nothing that you want in the salt marsh. If I ever hear of something, we can talk.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. Okay, next, Martha Taylor and Gordy Vining regarding the Clipper City Rail Trail.
My portion will be very quick. I just want to introduce Jordy Vining, who's the Senior Project Manager from the Office of Planning and Development in Newburyport, and he's going to give an update on the Clipper City Rail Trail Phase 2, and especially Newbury's end on Parker Street.
Is this okay right here?
Sure.
So that you all and maybe some of the audience.
I think you need to use the mic because we're
Oh.
unable to see.
Okay, the mic here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I'll just take a few minutes here. I was in front of you all a number of months ago when we were talking about the right-of-way issues associated with the rail trail. We've been working away on the preliminary design. Oh, it's a little crooked here. For the past few months, we have a public meeting in Newburyport City Hall on this Thursday, the 11th. And in the next few weeks, we're hoping to submit our so-called comprehensive preliminary plan, the 25% plan to the state. We still have probably about a year of permitting and review in front of us for this project. It's a long, slow process, and it is scheduled for advertising for construction in federal fiscal year 15. So we're still a couple of years out. That's the basic framework of the process we're working through. Right now, I'm trying to touch base with all the stakeholders I can as we pull together the preliminary plan to try to see if we have we can put our best foot forward in terms of what we're submitting to the state. So, just to give a quick orientation, this is Parker Street down here. This is the Rotary right here, the cemetery, etc. The white line is supposed to, roughly approximate where the rail corridor is and where the trail will go. Here's the first phase we did in the north end of Newburyport a couple years ago. And then this is the phase that we're doing now, phase 2, which is about 1.5 miles from Newburyport Central Waterfront to Parker Street. A connection to the train station is some distant future, phase 3. I don't know when that'll happen, but this is what we're working on right now. So I brought up the plan sheet that shows the Newbury section is underneath here. And the one that we had pulled together a few weeks ago, I understood from Martha there was some concern about the parking along Parker Street. So we have a revised version that I wanted to share with you and just see what your thoughts were. The basic rationale here is that this is the southern trailhead at this point, or it will be, of this facility, of this trail. And I've been contacted by some people in Newbury saying that they want to be able to drive to the trailhead and park their car and get out with their kids and take a walk or whatever. In general, human nature, there's going to be a certain number of people who will want to drive here and leave their vehicles to take a little walk or a bike ride or what have you. So what we're proposing is, and I'll show this on the plan, is about 6 spaces on this side of the trail on the street, widening the road so it doesn't interfere with the vehicular travel lanes. The concern is that if we don't do that sort of managed parking and design it so that it's safe and people are pulling off far enough, that there's going to be unmanaged parking where people will just go there and pull off. And then we'll have a difficult situation to manage. Let's pull this down here. I colored in the plan so it's a little bit easier to read here. So just again, orientation. So here's Parker Street, colored gray, with the yellow line going down the middle. And these are existing 12-foot vehicular travel lanes, each one. And the right-of-way is the red line here. It's a fairly broad. The municipal right-of-way is about 65 feet. And there's a couple of shades of blue here. And this is what the proposal is, to basically add this 4-foot buffer along the edge of the road, and then to add these 6 parallel parking spaces here. And then this is the trail head itself as it goes off and then curves around the corner of the cemetery into Newburyport. The proposal that we had before had some parking over on this side. That's been eliminated, and there's some proposed boulders over in here to try to control and keep it from parking there, although we'll continue that bit of a buffer strip. I took a couple of photographs and I put them together on this sheet to try to give a sense of what this was. Here I'm sitting next to my nice family-friendly minivan, and I'm standing in this I measured it out. There's this 4-foot strip there next to the road, and there's cars going by me, and they're staying within their 12-foot vehicular travel lane. No one has to swerve or anything like that. So that's what that buffer space is there. This little cartoon sketch that I did, this basically shows that there is a line of sight, because that was the thing that we wanted to check. Whether there is the crest of the hill there with the old railroad crossing, and whether you had an appropriate line of sight over that hill. And our consultant actually sent me this chart, which is from Ashto's matrix, which says, here are the distances given the speeds of vehicles and the slant of the road. This is just under 3%, and 3% grade. And then what's circled here is basically cars going from 30 to 50 miles an hour. The long and the short of that is that people need to be able to see, depending on how fast they're going, see what's up ahead within 300 or 400 feet, between 30 and 50 miles an hour. So when I went out there and I parked the car and then walked back and measured it, that you can see the parked cars pretty clearly when you're that distance away. This is coming from the other direction where you have a very clear line of sight. It's open and easy to see anyone parking on that other side. So that's the basic argument, and hopefully I explained that succinctly and somewhat clearly. And I just want to see what your thoughts were and whether I might ask for your approval of this approach in the preliminary plan.
Buddy, is there any off-site, off-road parking that is available with some construction to the rail trail?
That's a good question, and I forgot to raise that.
Because my concern is,
Yeah.
it's well-traveled, and everyone thinks of a car parking parallel, and it looks good there, but that car could just as easily spin right around and go back the other way it came. I can remember when the trustees came in on Newman Road, and it seems to be almost less traveled than Parker. I mean, we've got the trucks that are bringing rocks to the island use that.
Yeah.
And we kind of opted for them to go and put something off the road.
Yeah.
And they did a nice job. So you've got to convince me anyway, one heck of a lot more, that
Yeah.
that's gonna really be something that would enhance the neighborhood and, you know, I mean, if someone parks there because it's not managed, they get a ticket. They won't do it too many times. So,
We did try to look into, here we are, you know, whether there was room and so forth to try to bring cars into the old rail corridor, off the road, get them off the road. That didn't seem feasible when the consultant and I looked at that for a couple of different reasons. One is there are wetlands on both sides. There's a relatively narrow space in which you can actually bring the trail in. So we had originally conceived of this notion of having the trail going along and then having a parallel access road, having those two things right next to each other. And it turns out we really didn't have room, and we wouldn't be able to get that permitted. The other element is, even if we could do that, certainly just having people drive in, nose in, we wouldn't want people backing out back onto Parker Street. That wouldn't be safe. And having to come in and try to find room in here to have a parking lot where there was room enough to turn around, the space just really wasn't there. So when we looked at this and looked at all the standards involved from the state and the National Standards Board, and talked to the traffic engineers, and I think my understanding is the police chief took a drive-by and was comfortable with it, and that it was that it would be safe because the line of sight was okay and so forth. That the safest way to do it is to put that additional bit of paving in, so you have that extra 4 feet and then that extra 7 or 8 feet in that, and then people will pull off and they won't be in the way, and then they'll pull right out and leave. So that's the thinking.
And I can just verify, excuse me. Chief Riley and I did go out and drive that, and we drove it in both directions and also pulled into the parking spaces, and he sent me an email afterwards, which I believe is in your packets, saying that he reviewed the plan, and physically viewed the site, and he's satisfied that the sight lines are appropriate for the proposed parking. He was concerned originally more with the parking that was on the east side of the trailhead, and feels very comfortable having it on the west side as shown. And there are clear sight lines for people who are in the parking spaces to see cars that are coming, and doesn't see any issues there. So just wanted to confirm what you already said.
May I? May I?
Yeah.
Okay. That's all well and good in the summertime. My concern is the wintertime, cross-country skiers, not a good mix. Your plowing's not gonna be all the way across there. That really concerns me. I reiterate Jeff's idea, off-road parking. why can't you go across the street, continue down the rail line, and make parking there? Move the gate back, one lane in, and have, diagonal in parking or something of that nature. You could get down, I mean, you're already talking to the rail people, why can't you just continue a little bit further for?
Well, I guess two things popped to mind. One is, in terms of cross-country skiing, the rail trail really hasn't been set up and anticipated as for cross-country skiers. The thing, at least with the other first phase that we've done, we actually get it plowed, we get it cleared so that it's more of a year-round walking trail. That's what most people seem to have preferred. These days, we only seem to get 1 or 2 snows a winter where you actually can go cross-country skiing. So, so we've been promoting that sort of view. So I don't think we're going to have very much cross-country skiing going on there. In terms of having something across the street, we were actually trying to minimize, at this stage of the game, with not having a trail that continues on and goes to the train station, having people cross that road. If we don't have to have people crossing that road with cars going 30, 40, whatever miles per hour, and then we'd rather just keep them on the trail side. So that was the approach. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head whether the town or whether it's National Grid that owns that parcel right across the street. I'll have to go back and look.
I think crossing the road without the connection in place would be not as good either.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I've got to give it some thought. I haven't been out there, I haven't reviewed it.
Yeah.
I did get a little nervous. Whose responsibility is it when these things start to have to be plowed?
Well, with the other side, we've done a combination of having the city's DPS do it, and we have there's a business over there, which Enpro, which has done some of it, about a quarter of it for us. In general, it's going to be the city's DPS going. We're not going to ask the town to say, well, there's a couple 100 yards which are in Newbury, so we're going to stop. So that we'll be having the city do that.
I'd like to ask a question. How you doing? Kathleen Pearson. I like the idea of parking, and I'll tell you why. I live in Old Town, and my family's close enough where we can ride to the trail, but I'm thinking about people that live on Plum Island or in Byfield, that it's too far for them to ride their bikes from their house to the trail. And it's a great access to get to downtown Newburyport, where many of us ride our bikes with our children. So I just like the selectmen to think about that for the other parts of town, like Byfield and Plum Island.
Fred?
See, is this a public hearing? Do I need to identify myself?
Yeah, identify yourself.
Yeah, Fred Thurler, 26 Marsh Avenue. Comments and concerns. First of all, I'm a frequent user of the back entrance to the cemetery there, driver of a small car, and you cannot see cars coming from that point. I don't know how close this comes to that driveway, but as you get down lower there is no visibility there. And I don't like this idea. I don't like the idea of parallel parking on here. I think it's dangerous. Parallel parking is dangerous, period. And it's 35-mile-an-hour limit here, but they go 40, 45 miles an hour here sometimes. And then I got a question. Does this trail interconnect with High Street?
It does.
Are you going to have a connection like you do on the other trail?
Basically, yes.
At Marsh's Hill.
It doesn't show on this sort of basic white line, but there's going to be a secondary trail or access or whatever that'll go off, and it'll go up to High Street and the sidewalk.
Okay, the point there is there's a lot of parking on High Street here, which they use for Marsh's Hill now, which is very handy to Newbury, and it's not interfering with traffic, and that could easily access the trail at that point, and I would much prefer to see that than to see the accidents that I think are going to happen on Parker Street. Thank you.
Did you say you have the ramps
Pardon?
All right, we're gonna suspend this now.
to get access from Hybrid?
Yeah.
Martha, can we wrap this up because we gotta start our hearing?
Okay. If,
Tell you what,
Yeah.
I'll make a motion, we table this to our next meeting anyway, because I wanna go out and look.
okay,
And I suggest that you really look for some off-site. So I've made the motion to table it to the next meeting.
Second motion.
All in favor? Okay.
Thank you very
Thanks for your
much, but
consideration.
as I say, we wanna really look at that
Right.
parking.
we'll keep talking about it.
All right, thanks.
Okay. Next on the agenda is at 7:30, and we want to resume the public hearings that have been going on regarding the solar array at the Pikel Farm. And I don't know who wants to be, do you want to start it off? And whenever, anybody that's going to come up and speak, please come to the microphone and identify yourself, and we'll do this orderly. And I really,
I don't get cold.
a
so
lot
I
of
think you
people
must-
have testified already, and we've heard it. I've seen, I wasn't here at the last meeting, and I viewed the tape, and I signed the paperwork, and I'm familiar with everything that's transpired so far. Anything, I'd like to just address new issues that have come up, and anybody that hasn't spoken at the prior meetings, if they'd like a chance to speak, we'll give you a chance. So, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Richard Kleiman from Sagestone. We're the project proponents. I just wanted to introduce, I know you know Gene and Donna Pikel, the landowners are here, and the Sagestone partners are here. Bruce Hayfitz, you met at the last meeting, Jim Ross, and Peter Besanovsky, and this is our attorney, Jonathan Clavens, from the Clavens Law Group. So we're here to answer any questions that you have or that we can help with others who may have questions. But I wanted to ask John to just say a few words as well. Thank you.
Sure. So I'm John Clavens from Clavens Law Group and counsel to the developer, Sagestone. At the last meeting, I know there were concerns expressed by both the board members and members of the public about the scope of the state statute that governs local boards' approval of solar projects. I wanted to say a few words to assist in understanding of that statute. I know your counsel, Jeannie Kramer, and I have spoken about this a little bit. So the statute says that local zoning can't prohibit or unreasonably regulate solar facility except where necessary to protect public health, safety, or welfare. Various folks have been looking in this statute anew as solar projects have been proposed around the state and trying to figure out what it really means in practice. One leading law firm that represents probably the majority of cities and towns across the state has taken a close, careful look at this and concluded that the end result is not exactly, but very much like site plan review, which is a process for looking at a project and its impacts and imposing reasonable conditions to help the project fit into the community, but not a process to prohibit a solar project. In this case, I think any objective observer would conclude that it's really impossible in this case. Not necessarily in the case of every solar project, but in this case, in the case of this well-designed, well-sited project on this property, very difficult to conclude that it would be necessary to prohibit it to protect health, safety, or welfare. This is one of the best designed solar projects I've seen. My firm does a great deal of both wind project and solar project development work, and this project as it's sited, set back from roads, with screening, even taking extra steps to separate solar arrays so that in the end, more than half of the project site remains in horticultural use for growing hay. I find unparalleled. I have other projects that I've seen where solar panels are packed together, they're right near a road. This one is different. It's been designed with your input to best fit into the community. Some folks brought up at the last public hearing session that there have been boards that have, despite the statute, denied solar projects. I'm only aware personally of one. I'm not denying that there may be others. In the one case I'm aware of, as far as I know, the board denied it because of concerns about impact to one single person's dental implants. I was.
Cochlear implants, there's a difference between the ear and the teeth?
It's very hard to explain, probably only because, a board was considering whether they thought it was appropriate or not for the community and really stretching. In that case, I'm aware that the only reason that violation of state law stood was because the developer walked away. That won't be the case in our case. A great deal of time and effort has been invested in putting together a project that we think will really benefit the town of Newbury. In addition to the effort, it would really be an injustice if this board were to look at the evidence before it and conclude that it was necessary to deny the project to protect health, safety, and welfare. Were we to then appeal a denial, a court would then look at this with a new set of eyes in a de novo proceeding on appeal. In a de novo proceeding, the court would be looking only at real facts, not unsupported fears, unfounded allegations, unscientific accusations, but facts. And if it had to get to that stage, we are confident that the fact finder would find that denial of this special permit application is absolutely not necessary to protect public health, safety, and welfare. If you had any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, I'll sit down.
Okay, does the board have any?
I have a question. I mean, it disturbs me you don't know the difference between teeth and ears, but that's a separate issue. Who is this big firm that represents most of the towns and cities in the Commonwealth that has decided, sort of the things you just mentioned?
Kopelman and Page.
Okay. Pretty good. Yeah, we've heard of them.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
Jeff, anything?
I mean, there's things that I need answered, but I think that'll happen a little later. Rich, have we heard yet or seen yet, and I'm just out of the loop, what in lieu of taxes, I haven't seen anything yet on what the deal is. I haven't had time to even think about, is that a good deal or a bad deal?
We've provided you a summary of that information.
That was early and that wasn't relevant. Is there another one after that? Or
At
you
the-
going
the
on the
one from
chart?
the last meeting. Not that. Just this was the summary of the benefits to the town. It had a.
What will the town, actually, Rich, just give me a figure. What will the town make a year? I do have that one, but, spell it out for me on this. What do we make in a year?
So that summarizes the projected property taxes. Obviously, we're still in discussions with the town about a proposed pilot.
When does that get done?
Well, there's a process of negotiating that with the town, and then it would ultimately have to be approved by town meeting, as I understand it. So it's a process. We can't decide it here as part of the special permit process.
See, that's the thing I don't quite understand. In other words, tonight or in a meeting subsequently, if we're to vote for the solar array, where we don't have any idea what the agreement is in lieu of taxes, how does that work?
What we've done to summarize what we've proposed to the town in terms of the dollars.
Suppose we don't like it.
Well, then there's a negotiation that would happen, and
Why doesn't
but
that
that's a
happen?
separate
Why
issue
doesn't
from
that-
that is a
but why
separate
doesn't that-
issue from the special permit. It's actually not part of your review of the special permit
Why doesn't that happen now?
because it's pilot agreement is a separately negotiated agreement. We have offered and made that available to the town and the town council and the town administrator, and I am assuming they shared that information with the selectmen. And that's been before the town for, I'd say, 2 months or more.
You mean the actual number?
Yeah, it's in that agreement. It's a draft agreement. And we actually
Have you seen it?
we were actually given, I will actually go further than that. The form of agreement was given to us by the town to use.
Sure. Okay, you want to take a, 5-10 minute break? Okay, at the request of our town council, we'll take a 5 or 10 minute break.
You look lonely. I'll sit here.
Thank you very much. Tracy and I usually kick each other. This is really heated, isn't it?
Yes.
Wow. You
Ready? You? Yep.
Is that?
Lady is seriously concerned about.
Okay, can I have your attention? Okay, we're ready to resume. Jeff's question is complex, and there's a lot that's been done, and our town council has all the information, and I think it's best that she explain it to us, so.
So I'm not sure whether you know this yet, but I did speak to your lawyer last week concerning that pilot, that early draft, which was going back and forth maybe in September, and then it's stopped pending other matters. Essentially, the way to handle these, it's not really looked upon anymore from the latest news from DOR as a pilot, which stands for payment in lieu of taxes. Actually, what needs to be negotiated is a tax agreement. The number is not subject to negotiation because the way that they need to be done now per DOR is by actually calculating the amount of personal property and real estate taxes that would be due over the useful life of the equipment. And then what's up for negotiation is the schedule under which those are paid. So I asked last week for the hard costs involved in the construction of the facility because that's the jumping off point for making that schedule. First you have to find out what it costs to build it, and that's how personal property taxes work. So that's where that piece is. It is appropriate to discuss it as part of the special permit process because under the district-specific applicable regulations of the zoning bylaw, the uses by special permit, this is for the agricultural residential district, which is where this facility is. One of the criteria that the Board of Selectmen have to look at is community benefit. So I think that the three criteria set forth here, it's in 97.3 C1A all the way towards the bottom, is whether or not the proposed use, building, or structure is for the best interest of the town, is not injurious or obnoxious to the neighboring properties, and will satisfy a community need or convenience not otherwise being served, which could arguably be supplying clean energy. So those are the things, in my view, that you need to inform the board about, and those are the criteria that are under consideration by them in terms of your submissions and other information that's available to them through this process. So that's how I see it.
And not to make the process onerous, I asked this at the last meeting, and I think Ginny described it very well. It's just, at least in every bargain I made since when I was throwing marbles in the yard, if we okay something and we don't know what we're getting, where's the ability and leverage for us to negotiate? So that was a little hard for me to understand. And like I said, just explain it to you, and I'm good to go.
No, we're absolutely going to try and answer your question the best we can now. The project will clearly have a tax benefit to the town. There'll be an assessment process, as Ginny just described, that will typically we work with the town assessor. There's an income approach and a cost approach. They look at both approaches under the DOR rules and guidelines, and then they make a judgment about what the assessment would be, and then you can you can either just be taxed as others are, or you can enter into a tax agreement that effectively gives the town some certainty on year to year what those taxes would be. But that's at the town's option as far as that goes. So we were originally working off that agreement that I referred to earlier, but then DOR, the Department of Revenue, came out with sort of further guidance and had a series of workshops over the last month and a half or so that clarified for cities and towns this process that Ginny just described. So we're absolutely going to follow that process. We're already sort of working with the town officials on that and such. So, but it takes time to go through it and back and forth, and the assessor will have to look at that information carefully and give us specific feedback as to what the assessment's going to be ultimately. But there's going to be positive revenue and substantial tax paid from this project, and there'll be no drain on town services. There'll be no school children entering the schools to support. Not that that's a bad thing, but there is a cost associated with that. There'll be no traffic. There'll be no other town services needed on a regular basis that some other types of development, commercial and residential, would normally require, plowing and other things that are expensive to a town. This basically puts new tax dollars on the rolls, and if the town so chooses to enter into a tax agreement, it can give the town some certainty, but it absolutely is revenue positive to the town. Under the draft agreement, we had looked at the numbers and projected that the town would gain over $600,000 in new taxes from this project, plus $36,000 in building and electrical fees and the like. So there's a substantial amount of revenue just in those two sort of line items. But we just, there'll be a process with the assessors, and we'll go back and forth, and we'll do what we have to do to provide that proper information. But I just wanted to kind of go through the process with you and make sure that you understood that we know we have to provide that information, and that information is going to go back and forth. But we'd been working off this earlier model earlier because that was the process up until recently.
I appreciate what you've said. I think it was hard for me in the very beginning because I think there's an advanced depreciation schedule with what you're putting in.
Right.
And it kind of scared me in the beginning because that's gonna directly affect the amount of taxes that will be paid the town. So if I wanted to get confused, I could get confused. And I confuse easily. So
Yeah, as do I.
I don't know, when will I get a little more clarity? Any idea, Ginny, or, I mean, how long do these things take?
I think, generally speaking, we've done these types of agreements with a number of cities and towns already. It tends to take a while. There's a deliberative process with the assessors, and they look at the numbers very carefully, and then they often check with DOR to get further feedback. So it's it takes probably several months.
But I mean, can I ask your lawyer,
Yes.
can you understand the connection that seemingly might be hypothetically made to community benefits?
Yes. Well, undoubtedly, there's a significant community benefit.
But there could be less, there could be more, or there could be in the middle. That's my only confusion. And maybe I'll just let it go and we'll proceed with others because I've taken enough time. So Mike, why don't you move it along? But, I mean, I'll get some guidance from Ginny on this too.
Okay.
Mike, I have a question.
Th-
And it really goes to the drawing up there. As you know, I've not been real satisfied with what you call a landscaping plan. And, 'cause, having been on the planning board and dealt with other proposals as a selectman, we normally see a little more detail. But so, I thought I hadn't heard of this particular plant before, so I just went online to some of the extension services of various universities and states and stuff to find out, okay. And the way you describe this plant and the way they describe the plant seem a bit different, okay? What I found is it doesn't grow to 10 feet, it grows to 5 to 8 feet. It's very slow growing, and so if you don't plant full-size ones from the beginning, we won't have screening for a number of years. On top of it, after it matures, it gets very leggy, and so you lose the leaves on the bottom, and so you don't get any screening except at the top part of the plant. And so if this is in fact, unless you've got some special cultivar or something you're going to use, this is what I'm finding about this plant. It doesn't strike me as a very good choice for screening a project like this. And I just wonder, you know, were other alternatives considered, or is this just something you pulled down off the internet, or where did this come from?
This was actually recommended by Kurt Young, who's from Wetland Preservation, Inc., who was our consultant on the project. It's a common plant. It is, you know, native, and it does grow to 8 to 10 feet. There are different cultivars at different sizes, and you can look at each one, and each one of them has its own characteristics. But we actually did provide this plan to the selectmen in a formal form between the last hearing and this hearing, so you have that in your folders, your files. This is more of a cartoon version colored in, but we've given you the specifics on the plant that would be used and how they'd be planted, and it shows it formally on the plan. But we chose this, and Kurt recommended it because he thought it would be well suited to the site, to the soils, and to the conditions here, that it's not susceptible to deer browsing, that it's an evergreen, that it has very good wildlife habitat value in terms of the berries for food and the cover for nesting. Not aware of sort of leaf loss issues. Generally speaking, the ones I've seen, the specimens I've seen, have been very lush, top to bottom, and I've been out to look at different ones. We thought it was a good choice. If you'd prefer to condition a different plant there, that is certainly your choice. But we thought, based on Kurt's advice, that it would be well suited to the site, and it would do a very good job in terms of screening the solar array from potential views from the street and from the Colby farm in particular.
Could you tell us what cultivar you're planning, you were proposing?
I'm sorry, I'm not a
You just gave us the
horticulturalist.
species name.
I'd have to talk to Kurt to get you the specifics.
I mean, I
but
know there's, you know, I mean, not that I'm a landscaping expert or anything, but, you know, like anybody else, I like to plant stuff in my yard, and so I'm aware.
I mean, if there is a particular cultivar you'd like us to use, we could do that.
I'm
We've
not the
proposed
expert. I just want to
what we think is a very
understand
reasonable
what it is that
plan.
you're proposing to do. That's all I'm asking for.
All set? Okay. Marlene? Marlene, want to take the microphone and identify yourself, please?
Marlene Schrader, 1 Anchor Way, Newbury. I think I can be heard if I can step away so that I can use it.
No, the mic's, this is televised.
No, I'd like the space right, a little bit of space.
There you
So, now, would you like me to move this way?
Yeah, you can.
All right, thank you so much.
Riley, you won't be heard unless you talk into it, unfortunately.
No, I'll be okay if I have to. Thank you, though. I've previously given you a packet of information. I would like to add one more piece to that right now. John, I was glad to hear you refer to our community as a country community, because I think that's here, and maybe, I haven't met you yet, I'm Marlene. And I'd like to speak just briefly on some of these things. What I've just passed out to them has to do with the concept of public welfare. I did a little looking at public welfare, and I found that Black's Law Dictionary, which is a pretty definitive legal resource used by lawyers, law students, and lay people like myself. I think most legal people would be familiar with it. And I read the legal definition of public welfare according to Black. And then I read the fact to me that it was broad enough to cover the economic, historic, and stewardship aspects of landscapes in relationship to public welfare. Black says this. He defines the term public welfare as the prosperity, well-being, convenience of the public at large, or a whole community, as distinguished from the advantage of an individual or limited class. It embraces the primary social interests of safety, order, morals, economic interests, non-material, and political interests. In the development of our civic life, the definition of public welfare has also developed until it has been held to bring within its purview regulations for the promotion of economic welfare and public convenience. Then I Googled public welfare and landscapes, and I found quite a few interesting things about that. One of the most interesting documents was one put out by landscape architects. And I find that landscape architects are a licensed profession in most states, and I could find statements in a number of states about the value of landscape architecture and the concept of public welfare. And as a profession, I found in particular a study which they did in 2010, and it was entitled Landscape Architecture, which they include both historic and contemporary landscapes. The study was Landscape Architecture and Public Welfare. And they listed a bunch of points there, and I'd like to focus on just 4 of those points that I think are clearly aspects in which this particular landscape benefits the public welfare of our community. One of the things that I've given to the selectmen is this picture. Here's a fine arts painting that was done in 1876. It has an auction value of $92,000. Here's a photograph of the common pasture just done a few years ago, and you can see they're very little changed. We have history of the common pasture over 5 centuries. While it's been nibbled around the sides, it is largely unchanged in 300 years. Someone from the 1700s would recognize the common pasture today. First point I'd like to bring out is the concept of economic values. More than $1 million has been spent thus far in protecting parcels in the common pasture. Over $500,000 has been spent by the state through their self-help programs, and about another $500,000 by individuals, organizations, institutions, foundations. There are people in Newburyport, and one particular donor actually gave more than $100,000 because they felt that this was so important. And I think that $1 million is worth quite a lot of money to have invested, and I see it as an investment in our community, to not take a second look at. A lot of people in the Common Pasture Stewardship Council, myself being one of them, worked many, many hours on this. And for every project that the state approves with self-help money, they don't just give you the money, they have to tell you, you have to tell them how you are going to use this and take care of that investment. This is just the land use and conservation plan for the section of the Coffins Island. We had to do it for the other wet meadows parts and things like that. Some of them have also been protected with agricultural preservation restrictions or other conservation restrictions. So I would contend that a lot of money has been invested, and that's an economic investment that we should consider. Many people regard this area as the gateway to Newbury and Newburyport. I'm always very fond of quoting Hack Cranberg, who always said, when you see the cows, you know you're home. And that is the kind of setting and feeling you have when you see the cows. No one is going to say, when you see the solar panels, you know you're home. I'd also like to mention the next thing that's happened. The recognition of this particular landscape is not new. The first study I can reference is 1933, and at that point it sort of set the groundwork for identifying landscapes. It was done by professionals, and they identified landscapes as distinctive, of which there's only 4% in the whole Commonwealth, noteworthy, 5%, common, 91%. The common pasture is a distinctive landscape. So it's a pretty small landscape that in terms of 4% of the land. And studies were done in 1933, 1982, 1997, 2004, and 2005. We have, besides the state recognizing and documenting that, oh, by the way, that is on a GIS layer, landscapes. And although it takes particular software, it's there for town planners and people to use for sound land use planning so that they can take advantage of that. I also mentioned that we've received local recognition by people here in our community when the 2005 Heritage Landscape Inventory was done. That was a committee with some state assistance and local people identifying important things, and the common pasture was prominently mentioned there. I've given the selectmen places where they can reference these. I'll be glad to share those with anyone. Also in 2004, the Preservation Massachusetts recognized this landscape as one of the 10 most endangered in the Commonwealth. Then finally, I'd like to speak to the environmental importance of it. This particular kind of moist grassland represents 0.2% of this type of wetland in the Commonwealth. Most of them are in rather small areas. Very few are in something the size of the acreage we have out there. It's been referred to by Chris Leahy, a prominent naturalist, in his book, The Nature of Massachusetts, or in Wayne Peterson's reference. He is an internationally known ornithologist and naturalist, as the premier grassland in all of eastern Massachusetts. Premier grassland in all of Massachusetts, and it's in our town. One of the last things I would like to mention, too, in terms of the environment, I put a statement in there, by the way, of how they were referencing that. And I have said, in addition to its ecological integrity, abundant wetlands, safeguarding scenic and agricultural values, the landscapes protect the Little River headwaters and recharge wetlands. It's a habitat for migratory birds and helps to mitigate seasonal flooding of the Little River downstream. I think that our community has had a lot of experience with extensive flooding. We remember flooding, and I think some documentation has been given to you with photos of the entire parcel flooding. And only this afternoon I received the last piece of paper I'm going to give you. I'm not sure this is in the plan, but in addition to the Little River, and the plan does stay out of the 200-foot setback from the river, I did not see when I first observed this plan this particular hydrological connection that's there. It's the one in dark, little dark black line there. And among the many things we need to think about as we think about this, we need to think about the ecological integrity of not fragmenting this particular parcel. In conclusion, I've been working for more than 55 years, 55 years on environmental advocacy. And I would get choked up because of the many hours it is, how much it is a benefit to this community that's irreplaceable. And I would ask that perhaps the owners could reflect on this and think if there are other alternatives to it. I understand their motivation, but I know the impact that it will have on our community is irreplaceable. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your comments. With all due respect to, people's fondness for the common pasture, and we understand that. We understand that that's, an important aspect of the town, and we're certainly not out to, that's not the objective of the project, is to somehow provide some kind of a negative impact there. The fact remains, though, it's not parkland, it's farmland. It's farmland that's owned by the Pikel's and farmed by the Pikel's, and it's privately owned land. And what we're proposing is an allowed use under your zoning by special permit. The view is not protected. I mean, the Pikel's could plant trees there and block the view tomorrow if they wanted to, without coming to the town. We feel like this is an environmentally positive project in terms of reducing fossil fuel emissions and climate change impacts, the kinds of impacts you're seeing on Plum Island right now. The Conservation Commission has approved the project and found that it does not have the types of impacts that were just mentioned. The project, the area where the solar panels will be, will continue to have habitat value. So we really do think there's an environmentally positive aspect to this project, that it's as benign a use as we could imagine for this, that provides the farmer some supplemental income to continue farming the entire property. So we think it has many, many positive attributes, both environmentally and economically. So, thank you.
I'm Donna Pecklin. I'm one of the landowners. In response to her statement about saving this land, in theory, we really are saving this land. This is a temporary project. Yes, it may go on for years, but when we're all gone and our children are coming up, it's going to be back to the exact same position that it is right now. For everybody to act like we aren't doing anything that's for the benefit of saving that land, I think they need to rethink that situation. As Rich said, the Conservation Committee has gone through and acknowledged that it's going to stay, that it's suitable, that it's going to remain the same. And the other issue is Little River keeps coming up, the saving of Little River. Well, as I was explaining to somebody tonight, perhaps you ought to do a little research on Little River, because in Hale Street, there's a culvert that when it rains, sometimes, not always, they open the culvert and the water gushes down Little River. And it's not the perfect Little River that you people all think that it is. There's issues with Little River. So I just think that not everybody has all the facts, and I also agree it is private property, and we're doing the best we can with it.
thank you, thank you. Okay.
Jackman Colby, 31 Low Street, and I also operate Colby Farm with my family at 50 Scotland Road. After the last meeting, I was left with some homework, basically concerns, health, safety, and welfare. On health, these facilities are fairly new. The long-term health effects are unknown. We spend many of our days, and my parents spend every night there. We're going to be in very close proximity to this facility. Safety. in the event of a fire or some type of emergency, we're gonna have to wait for Mass Electric to show up to unhook this thing before any issues can be addressed. And that can last from 30 minutes to several hours. Also, evacuating our animals. We have one stock trailer, and we have over 40 animals in our yard. So do the math. They're not all gonna get out safely. Welfare. I've already spoke of the town's welfare and how valuable I think that area is. Many visitors come to our farm, and it's because of the appearance and the scenery and the tranquility. I'm afraid such a change in that neighborhood will affect that. Also, public perception. If these types of facilities in the future get a negative connotation to them, we're going to be indirectly married to this project. And I'm very afraid that people will be faced with the choice: do we go to the farm that we think is safe, or do we go to the farm that we don't know what the effects of the solar field are? And that really concerns me. We're in a very competitive market, and people are very fickle about their food. And it doesn't take much to turn somebody off. Anyone that's gone to the store and picked up some fuzzy grapes or noticed a couple things weren't quite right, you don't want to go back there. And it doesn't take much when it comes to food to put an idea in somebody's mind. It doesn't take much at all. Also, our breeding stock. We've been working on our breeding program with the hogs for many, many years. We've traveled as far as Maryland and Pennsylvania many times. And we've bred many positive aspects into our animals over the years. You know, you get an animal that's special. You try to hold on to that bloodline. And if for some reason the animals had to be destroyed, for one, it would break our hearts. And for two, it would take many, many, many years to get our breeding program back on track. And in light of the economy right now and everything, we wouldn't survive it. We really wouldn't. And I'm sorry the town has, I don't know if I should say even threatened with legal action, but it's absolutely been mentioned. And I mean, I wouldn't want to sit in your gentlemen's seats. I know this is a very tough decision. And no matter how this works out in the end, I have a lot of respect for all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm ready to close the hearing. Is anybody else who wants to be heard? Okay, I'll declare the hearing closed. What do you want to go
Just
from here?
wondering, procedurally, we've had some communications from people that haven't been able to appear before us. Should we read these into the record, or just, this is part, I mean, it's, both cases are people who are opposing, the project, but I'm just wondering how, and I guess I'm asking Jenny, how should we deal with this type of material where someone hasn't actually spoke, but has provided us with materials?
Yeah, it's not necessary for you to read it into the record, although you may if you wish.
That's pretty long, so I prefer not
Okay.
to.
Yeah.
But it should be kept with all of the documents and papers that were submitted
Okay.
as part of the record.
Ginny, before Mike closes this meeting totally,
It closes the hearing.
Yeah.
before he closes the hearing, and some sort of motion gets made, which would have discussion attached to that motion, I'm still a little lost. I mean, the developer kind of knows his returns, and the homeowner knows his returns, and trust me, I respect property rights. And 48 kind of makes it a pretty strong, path that we walk. But I still don't understand what the town does. I mean, is the state gonna end up mandating what the town has for a tax schedule on this too?
No, I think that what the applicant and the town could work out as a tax agreement is still not, as you pointed out earlier, you still don't know the answer to that. I think that when you're looking at the criteria under the agricultural residential district's applicable regulations, one of the things that's set forth is a community benefit, one of the things that you need to look at. So as you pointed out before, it could be a little, a lot, or somewhere in between. So we don't have the answer to that question here tonight.
Sorry, I know this is your thing. This is our bargaining chip. Once we give this away, how, I mean, they can pretty well delineate what they want to pay, you know? We can argue with them all they want, but right now, we can say, no, that's not what we want.
Well,
Give us what we want, or we will not do your permit. I
Well-
mean, that's our bargaining chip, so I'm sorry. But
no, that's okay. I mean, alternatively, you know, not knowing what that sum of money is could leave you unconvinced of the community benefit that they're offering. And should they wish to make that more specific, they could, you know, ask for the opportunity to do so. But
Right.
right now, they're saying that there's going to be a community benefit in terms of taxation, but it's unclear what it is. So in terms of your weighing of that criteria, the lack of definitiveness of that is something that you can consider under the district-specific regulations, which again, are a little bit less squishy than public health, safety, and welfare are set forth in Article 3, Section 97-3, C1A. And those are the criteria that they have submitted themselves to the special permit process, under which the Board of Selectmen determines whether or not this is an appropriate case for a special permit to be granted. And as it states right there, it can be made subject to appropriate conditions, safeguards, and limitations in terms of vegetation or other things. If you didn't like what they picked, as he pointed out, it's your prerogative to condition it in a different way.
Yeah, Jenny, I want to make sure I understand procedurally that, you know, we have a motion to essentially close the public hearing, but once we close the public hearing, we have 90 days to reach a decision, draft the decision document, and file it with the clerk. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So we don't even have to vote tonight if we feel that we need more information, but the purpose of the public hearing is to get the input from the public.
Right.
That we still can
Right.
continue to, as a board, you know, resolve some of these unanswered questions before we take the formal vote to approve or disapprove the special permit.
Right. Obviously, you couldn't, you absolutely do not have to vote tonight. You can close the public hearing, which would end the submission of information on the question. You can take all the information that you have under consideration. You can look at things more closely. You know, you will be voting in open session
Right.
when you decide to deliberate and vote. So that's not something that could take place outside of open session, but
And we have how many days?
thank you.
90
90
days.
days? Okay.
A little
To submit
more,
the appeal.
a little more illumination on this process. And, you know, I don't know if you can answer it, Rich. Those workshops and those determinations by the state and DOR, are they done? Have they set forth what they're doing?
The law in this area is all very much in flux. There are no reported decisions from the State Appeals Court, or the Supreme Judicial Court, or even the Superior Courts or land courts, really, that go to this issue. So, you know, there's two different issues here. One is the standard for granting, in this case, a special permit. And the other issue, it's related because of the community benefit criteria in your special permit criteria. But it's really essentially a separate issue. So DOR has just very recently come out with you know, new guidelines and information concerning how the valuation and taxation of these projects is going to happen. But I don't think that it's done. I wouldn't call it done. It is certainly given more guidance than we had 3 or 4 months ago. But again, you know, until something is tested in court, you know, in terms of the special permit process, that aspect is unclear. in terms of the tax agreement, I think that we know where to go, but it's true that there's a lot of different ways to assess any personal property or any business, so, you can't say that they've said, oh, it's gonna be X dollars per kilowatt or something like that. It's not just a simple formula that you can plug the numbers into and come out with what the number would be, which is why we don't have that number right now.
And then Jenny, so it's my understanding then that if we go the tax agreement route, we still have to get town meeting approval,
Yes.
right? And so it would seem like that this kind of negotiation is not gonna be, even if we go forward with a special permit, it's not gonna get solved overnight, so it wouldn't be probably till the fall. We generally have a fall town meeting, and so we'd be looking really at the fall before we would know if we have that agreement in place or not, right?
But if we okayed the project and then town meeting didn't like the deal, I mean, what the heck happens then?
We would
I
tax
mean,
it in the
tough
normal
question.
fashion, right?
Right.
You mean you go back to personal property? Is that, are we
Well,
gonna be allowed?
I think that in the past, pilot agreements have been submitted to town meeting for approval, and now that it's tax agreements, I believe they still do have to be submitted to town meeting for approval, so, you know, a rejection by town meeting of the tax agreement does not mean that the entity doesn't have to pay their taxes. You know, what specifically would happen in that case, you know,
May I speak?
Please.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, there are plenty of cases where there are no tax agreements on a solar or wind project, and the town or city assesses the project, and the project pays property tax. It's you're not required to enter into an agreement. It's just many towns and cities have chosen to do that because it gives them some certainty, and they like that idea. But you can assess the project. Your assessors have all the tools necessary to assess a project, any type of commercial project or other type of project, and charge an appropriate tax on that property. So that's the fallback. It's not that you have to do this agreement, and it's not that we can know with certainty if you choose. You know, if the town chooses to say go the straight tax route without a tax agreement, you know, that assessment will happen periodically, whatever your regular schedule is for assessment, and that tax will change accordingly. But you know, we certainly we've given you our best estimate of what one version of at least the potential revenue is, and it could be more. You would still have ample opportunity to negotiate with us and work with us through the assessment process, and through, if you wanted to do a tax agreement, that would be, you'd have a lot of leverage to work with us to get a tax agreement in place. So this isn't really your only opportunity to lever the best tax deal you can get out of the project. You know, there's an upper limit to what these projects can afford. And we would certainly be very straightforward during that process on that. But we have to look at all of the costs and as well, and we'd have to get into all of the detail with the assessors on how that would be assessed. But anyway, the advantage of, I think, the primary advantage that cities and towns find with either some kind of a tax agreement is that it gives them certainty, and there's not this sort of relatively high amount of tax in the beginning, and then it sort of depreciates down to a much lower rate toward the end as the project value depreciates, you know, cost depreciation. So
I'm gonna ask you one question, because just depending on, like, Tracy doesn't happen to be here tonight, so I can't ask her, but, you know, when I ask Tracy next week, I mean, I'm gonna probably ask her, I mean, were you kind of slowing down the process, or was Rich not giving us, I mean, I wanna know why we didn't, I mean, I kind of asked the last meeting too, these things, no matter what, take months?
the back and forth through with the assessors generally takes time. It's just a process. The other thing that happened is that the DOR came out with new guidance and started these workshops during the process. So, yeah, we had an agreement that the town provided to us as a form of agreement, and we were working with that agreement, and then this sort of DOR involvement, you know, changes happened during the course of that. So we've been upfront all along. We've been trying to work proactively and cooperatively with the town. We've met with the town administrator a number of times about this and spoken openly, and our attorneys exchange documents and phone calls and information with Ginny on a regular basis. We're not trying to hide anything. It's a very open process, but you know, we need to move ahead. We hope that you'll consider all the information before you and get to a vote in as short of order as possible. We
Mike,
appreciate
just
it.
sort of procedurally, why don't we just close the public hearing? We can continue. We can continue to explore some of these issues, about potential benefits. But I think we've heard pretty much the same, what the public has to tell us.
Okay, make a motion to that.
Okay, I move that we close the public
Okay,
hearing.
motion made.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, we close the public hearing. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
So Ginny, I just have a question now that'll influence my thinking on when we take the vote, whenever that happens to be. And that is that with a special permit for a project like this, okay, if for whatever reason, between whoever owns the property 20 years in the future or whenever the decommissioning time is, what if they decide they still want solar there? You can replace panels. The transformers tend not to wear out very fast. Does the special permit carry on, or how does that work?
After the current owners of the property have sold or.
Well, I'm just saying right now,
Well, right, it's subject to a lease, right? That's what
Right.
that's what's happening here, so it's.
So basically, the special permit would expire with the expiration of the lease, or?
Well, this is 61A land, so once the uses change, the town has the opportunity to, all the opportunities that it has under 61A, so that's gonna happen here. The use is, it's gonna be converted to a different use. There's also discussions going on surrounding whether or not, I know the applicant doesn't think it is being converted to a different use because, because of the continuance of an agricultural use on the property, but, at that time, the town would have the ability to exercise its rights under 61A or not. And if it chooses not to exercise its rights under 61A, then that, at least that portion of it that's gonna be leased is gonna be subject to rollback taxes. Or, the provisions of 61A provide, how land taken out of that program is gonna be treated as a matter of taxation. And I think that, then there's a notice of option to lease the property. Then once the lease is executed, the terms of the lease would control what happens down the road. So.
But for these people here, if they wanna keep it in 61A, they can still have their solar panels and keep it in.
Well, I think that the plan is to keep, a great majority is at 71 acres total, and there's 16 acres that would be used by this parcel. I think that the plan is to take just the 16 acres out of 61A. As I said, there are discussions right now. The applicant doesn't think anything's being taken under 61A, so we're still working through those issues. I believe that DOR has made it clear that solar panels are a commercial use, and even if you have sheep grazing in between them, and even if you're still haying the land, that it is a commercial use and that land would come out of the 61A program.
So Jeannie, was that part of some of the discussions of the workshops and things too? Or was this?
I think that has been done on more of an ad hoc basis by DOR as different proposals have been submitted to them, and I think they have specifically rejected on more than one occasion the argument that the land is remain. First there was the farming the sun argument, which was rejected, and then there was the more specific, we're still gonna use it for hay, we're gonna still have sheep grazing, and we have been just as recently as last Thursday or Friday, I had that discussion with their council. So, we're looking for those opinions from DOR, and they're going to present, have said to me that they were going to present their view on that matter. So that's an unresolved issue at this point in time. But to the best of my knowledge and information, at this point, it would become a commercial use, and that portion would come out of 61A. I'm open to receiving information contrary to my view and considering it, but that's my.
So I mean, I'm glad that you've been as definitive as you have. So it seems there's a couple of moving pieces that we really didn't know anything about. So, and that's probably coming out of 61A hypothetically, and the fact that at least myself, can't get a handle on what what the benefit to the town might be. When do you think, kind of, I'd have more clarity on this, so, because I know we got 90 days. In other words,
You're
I'm
asking when are we
probably
gonna submit some
gonna have a
additional
little
information?
trouble voting for this
Yep,
without
I'm
having that information.
working on
I
it.
think you probably can glean that from
Yep.
my mannerisms.
We are working on getting certain information that Ginny's requested. Our accountants are working on that now. The 61A issue is really an issue with the Pikel's. Separate, separate really from the solar project. It's, they're the landowners, and that they're the ones that are subject to 61A, as I understand it. I don't want to speak for.
If you take it out of 61A, we pay the back 5 years of taxes, and so be it. I mean, that's not an issue. It's whatever the town has decided. It's not something that should hold up the vote or make a decision factor, because if that's what you decide will happen, then that's exactly what happens.
Right, we're not saying this solar project goes forward or doesn't go forward on the basis of whether it's that part of the property is in 61A or not. That's irrelevant to the solar project.
I think the only issue is if it's taxed as commercial property, that's an additional source, that's an additional revenue stream that could be considered part of the community benefit when you're considering the criteria of community benefit. So it would be the personal property taxes in addition to taxing that acreage as commercial property.
We kind of got off on a tangent, so I don't feel like my original question's been answered yet.
Okay, sorry.
Right.
And I was trying to figure out, how long is this special permit, if we approve the special permit, how long is it good for, is what the question.
Well, you can condition a special permit, and I think, I'm not sure I can answer that question. I don't think that it's necessarily transferable to other owners, or that it can expire. I believe that it could have an expiration date as part of it. I can't answer that question.
Okay.
I can find out the answer
Right.
and communicate it to you, but
Yeah.
I can't answer it as
That's
I
why
sit
we've
here.
got 90 days to take our vote,
Yes.
because we still have a few loose ends here
Yes.
that.
Yeah, because the 20 years, at the end of that, also there's the lease for 20 years. Do you get to redo it? Do you get to renegotiate it and all this stuff? Great question.
Well, the lease is not between the town, it's between the Pikel's and, it's their lease, it's not.
But our section of it, of what we garner out of it is
Your section of.
money. What we get for money is.
The tax revenues.
Right, so,
If the solar field's there, you're gonna get the tax money, whether it's, I don't understand how you feel that if the solar field is there, you get the tax money.
Without, at least for me, what my confusion is, I just don't understand. A solar field in the beginning has a very strong value, and they have a tendency, like a new truck with your excise tax, to have a strong value, and in 10 years, the value's not very strong.
And that's exactly why he suggested an agreement with.
And
the
I
town
love the
to
idea, but I got no idea what it is.
Can I?
And to be honest, my question is, Rob, what's the difference? You're gonna get money.
May I add
Because
something to this?
As a selectman in town, if it's in a position for our town administrator and the selectmen and town council to work with Rich to get a better deal for the town, wouldn't you as a resident think I'm stupid not to get more tax revenue?
Hold it hostage.
Jeff.
That's how I take it.
Yes.
The special hearing has been closed.
Okay.
If if I could add another thought on that too.
The special hearing has been closed, I think.
Well, just to respond to the question, if that's okay. You don't have to allow me to speak.
Probably let it go, Mike.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's okay, Rich, it's okay.
My only point was that we've demonstrated that there's a public benefit. I don't know that, and that's an affirmative finding, that there's definitely going to be tax money paid. Whether it's a specific tax dollar amount or not doesn't seem like that should weigh on whether you're able to take a vote or not. It seems to me that that's not an issue that would be, something suitable to block you from voting. That's just our opinion.
Wholeheartedly disagree with you on that.
All right.
I think, Mike, I'd just soon like to move on to the rest of the agenda.
Yep.
I think we've got plenty of opportunity to
Okay.
do our homework collectively and individually on some of these issues.
Is there anything under the town, there's no town administrator tonight, is there anything under the town administrator's report? Does anybody have anything? Huh?
Can we continue this to a time certain in terms of the deliberation and vote? It can be recontinued after that.
Oh, okay. What do you suggest?
30 days.
30 days?
For a review.
How do you feel about that?
Okay.
The recommendation of town council is probably a good recommendation as far as I'm
No, it just
concerned.
says continuous for 30 days
For a
Certain.
review.
For
For-
deliberation and vote, I mean, that, it's not set in stone, it can be moved, but you need to,
Okay, so we just basically put it on the agenda
Right.
for
right,
next month's.
pick a date, yeah.
Okay.
So
Does
when's our meeting a month out?
First meeting in May would be,
Second Tuesday.
I want to say the 13th.
No clue.
I think it's, no, the 14th.
14th, yeah.
14th.
What was it, 14th?
14th.
All right. Make a motion to that. Or somebody make a motion.
I mean,
You want to make it 2 months?
no,
30 days? All right, the
Well, I mean,
14th.
it's the 14th would be.
14th is the,
I mean, if I would make it,
Town meeting.
I would make the motion for less if I thought these guys could pull stuff together. And the town could pull stuff together.
You can make
got
it
90
for
days.
less and it can be moved,
okay, when's town meeting?
Well, it's not that. Why don't we make,
28th.
I mean, Ginny, unless, I mean,
Yeah.
I'll make a go ahead, what were you
I
gonna say?
was just gonna say, Kathy brought up an interesting point, and that is that Chuck is up for reelection, and should he lose the election, then what happens? Because we would only have 3 members who had participated in the
You need
public.
4.
And so that would automatically mean that the special permit was
Right.
not approved, right?
You're gonna lose.
But
When's the election?
30th
Yeah, 30th of
of
this month.
April.
So you gotta do it before then.
well, interesting problem.
Yes, it is.
Because we'd like more time to think this over, but at the same
Well, I
time, we want to
mean,
be fair to the applicants and have a quorum so we can vote on it, right?
I think out of fairness to everyone, we'll make a motion that we, pretty much get our homework done and the subject to a vote by next meeting.
That's good.
Yeah. I mean, how do we have to make the motion? Do we have to make the motion that we will vote or that we will continue to
So you'll
deliberate?
continue this matter until continued deliberations,
Okay,
until.
So I would move then that we continue to deliberate at our next meeting, however we want to say that.
Now, can we put in there to
but I
have
mean-
those figures here by then, or have Tracy work out a plan by then? Is
Well,
that possible, or am I talking crazy here?
Well, at least
I think
we
it's
get-
gonna be a lot gosh darn closer.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean,
Alright.
I think we ought to, I mean, how much more homework can you do in 30 days than you can do in 2
I'm
weeks?
just saying, just in case, it's probably we'll vote at the next meeting, but I'm just thinking, just in case.
Well, I'll make a motion and you can reject it that we,
Well, the motion's already been made.
good,
Yeah.
that I made.
So
yeah.
someone,
Okay.
well, which motion?
I was making a motion that we try to get everything done that we need, in the motion that we would probably vote on it by next selectmen's meeting.
Okay.
And if something occurs, then you can make another motion, Dave.
Well,
Okay. So you want to continue deliberations possibly for a vote by next selectmen's
Right.
meeting? Are you comfortable with that?
Is that okay?
that's what I was proposing too.
Okay,
is we
you second it?
Second.
Yeah, I second it, yeah.
Okay, motion made and seconded that we continue the deliberations in this manner for a possible vote at our next selectmen's meeting, which would be on,
No, that's,
do you know what it is, Kathy?
that's the 4th.
On that, 23rd?
I just say a possible vote, and if it doesn't happen, then what happens if he gets voted out? I mean, we have to have some idea what we're gonna do.
I mean, if Rich, I think the onus is on, at least for me, for my answer. I think I need a little clearer view of what I've been asking for the last two.
Can you tell us exactly what you're asking, because I've been to every meeting and I really didn't.
What I'm asking is, before this all occurred, it was a pilot in lieu of taxes. I never knew what that was gonna be. I still don't know what it's gonna be.
But
I still don't know if it's gonna be $1, or $20, or $20,000 a year. I don't know what it is. That's all I wanna know.
But are you asking them to negotiate that with the town and everything before you decide this?
I'd like to have a feeling just for it. Yeah, absolutely. That's just me.
But again, I mean, the motion is to continue deliberations to the next meeting.
On the next meeting.
Yeah, and we know that if we don't take a vote at that next meeting, and if Chuck does not get reelected, then we don't have the required 4
Yep.
people to approve it. And so I also would like to, have us vote
Yep.
up or down.
Yep,
I think it's only,
absolutely.
so unless something else comes up, I would do my very best to be ready to vote at the next meeting too.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion? No. All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay.
Can I just clarify, if that didn't happen, what is the law in terms of your bylaw, in terms of what happens then? Does the special permit process start over again? How would you address
That's a
that?
great question.
If what, if,
If he gets no disrespect, but if he doesn't make it,
I imagine we'd have to start over.
we'd have to start from the very beginning, they'd have to resubmit an application, is that what it is?
It would be denied. I think it would be,
The rules estimate.
that there would only be, that
Oh, okay.
And what is that?
if it becomes impossible due to illness or other, for somebody to vote, in some circumstances, they can take a vote. It would be basically the quorum would be lessened, or the number of serving members on the board would be lessened, and it would still count as a supermajority. I'm not.
So they could still.
Perhaps. It's clearly a good idea to try to get it done if it can be. I can look into that as well.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the law, but again, not being a lawyer, I don't know how it actually gets implemented in practice, so.
All right, so let's continue to, so it's the 23rd?
Yes, the 23rd. Jenny, thank you for this.
Oh, sure. Thank my new partner, too.
All right. New business.
Yeah, I just wondering, we had to kind of cut things off a little bit on
Yeah.
the rail trail. Were we done with that, or?
I don't know, are we done with the rail trail, Martha?
I tabled it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's right, okay.
Okay.
I'm just losing track. No, wait, I'm sorry, we have a lot of other business, but,
I don't mind talking to you
but,
afterwards.
yeah, but if you want to hang around.
One-to-one.
We don't think it's going to take long.
Okay.
Oh, yes, please do. Thank you. Yes,
Yeah.
23rd.
Okay,
Okay.
so, new business.
Ginny, new business draft fee proposal for town? Gonna wait for Tracy for that? Okay.
All right.
One-day liquor license for Protection 2 for a function on April 13th from 6 to 10 p.m.
Motion to
All in order,
approve.
Kev? All set?
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded, we grant the license to Protection 2 for a function on April 13th from 6 to 10 p.m. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the appointment of the Board of Fire Engineers from 5/1/13 to 4/30/14. know it's here somewhere.
We need to keep going.
All right, I got it.
Yeah.
March 25th. Dear Mr. Story, I would like to submit the following names for appointment.
Michael, could I interrupt you for 1
Okay,
minute?
yeah.
There were two separate items. One was the draft fee proposal, but the other one was the appointment of the new firm that I've joined, which is Bobrowski, Blattman, and Mead. And I have Lisa Mead here with me tonight in case you want to know anything about the firm or you have any questions about it.
I don't, but does anybody else?
No, I know some of the players, and I've always been impressed, so.
That means we know Lisa.
And maybe Lisa, you want to just tell them just a very short spiel? Sure. While she's here and you're here, you know, so.
She is a lawyer, right?
Yes,
Is there
I
such
have
a?
her here for this purpose.
I'm
not
sorry,
for
go ahead.
all the special permit, but she's already proved invaluable to this board and just based on her extensive experience with solar projects, which is something that I don't have, so.
In the local area.
Yes,
Yeah.
so.
Cool.
So this is Lisa Mead.
Our firm, thank you, Jenny. Good evening, everyone. Our firm is Blattman, Bobrowski, and Mead, and Mark Bobrowski and I, who all of you are familiar with probably for a long time ago, when he did the zoning on Plum Island for both Newburyport and Newbury for the water and sewer project. We joined up in 2004 and formed the firm in an effort to provide a different kind of municipal law services to municipalities. Having served on your side of the table, we thought it was important to be able to provide services in a way that communities used us to prevent litigation as opposed to fight litigation. And so some of the fee services you're going to look at later on are flat fees to help you encourage you to use our services as opposed to stay away from us and not use our services. One of the things that Ginny does with you is kind of a hallmark of our firm is to provide office hours and to build that relationship with department heads and staff so that everybody works together as a team as opposed to somebody who's kind of sitting out here and not really providing the services that you need. And so now our firm consists of 6 attorneys doing all municipal law, land use law, obviously that's Mark's specialty. And then we do some real estate law. My partner, Betty Ann Blattman, who happens to be Mark's wife, does only real estate conveyancing in the Concord office. So we have an office here in Newburyport, and at Concord, and in Millis, Massachusetts. We represent about 12 communities now. And we're really happy with the opportunity to work with Ginny and the work that she's doing here in Newbury. So I'm anxious to help come aboard with all of that as well.
All right.
Okay.
Now, was that legal arm twisting that you were doing?
It's all those solar fights we've had. Wind turbines, little rotator cuff.
Ginny's done a nice job for us
Yeah,
so far.
she has.
I need a motion to vote on the appointment of Jenny it's a 3-year term
As town council.
and the firm of Blattman, Bobrowski.
Where is it? Appointment of Jenny Craner as town council, right there. That's on B, I think.
All right. Somebody want to make a motion?
I move that we appoint Jenny Kramer as town council, and I guess the other part is the firm. I forget the order of the names.
Blattman, Bobrowski, and me, just alphabetical order.
Oh, okay.
Second the motion.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. To vote.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Right.
Like it or not, you're with us, kid.
I like that.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We did the liquor license. The appointment of the Board of Fire Engineers. I would like to submit the following names for appointment to the Board of Fire Engineers for the ensuing year. William Pearson, Doug Jamman Jr., Wally Zila, Timothy Wareham, Robert Dash, Doug Jamman Sr., Nate Walker, and Justin Webb. I would also like to submit the following names of appointment to the following positions. These are the same people, but they also have to have the title of William Pearson, Forest Warden, Doug Jamman Jr., Deputy Forest Warden, Wally Zila, Deputy Forest Warden, Tim Wareham, Deputy Forest Warden, Robert Dash, Deputy Forest Warden, Douglas Jamman Sr., Deputy Forest Warden, Nate Walker, Deputy Forest Warden, Justin Webb, Deputy Forest Warden, and Doug Jamin Jr. as the EMS coordinator. Thank you for your consideration. Sincerely, William Pearson, Fire Chief.
Motion to approve all.
Okay,
I've got to recuse myself because of Nathan.
okay.
I'll second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. We appoint the chief's recommendations for the Board of Fire Engineers. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Opposed? No opposed.
And we're including forest wardens and such
Yeah.
as well, right?
Okay.
How were we?
All right. License renewal for Blue, the Inn on the Beach for the parking lot at 11 Fordham Way. I get, this is a formality, right, Kathy?
Yeah.
What do you wish to do with this?
Motion to approve.
I'll second that
Okay,
motion.
motion made and seconded, we approve Blue, the Inn on the Beach at 20 Fordham Way for the parking lot at 11 Fordham Way, map U01, lot 26. I believe it will expire on 12/31/2013. Was it, did you make a motion? Yeah,
No, I
you did.
seconded it.
Seconded, all right,
The only,
okay.
yeah.
Any other discussion?
My only question, are they gonna be doing any moving of those buildings? I know the beach came up real close to it. Does that by any chance impact this vote at all? No? Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it's a vote. Request to include Newbury on the route for the third annual Coast to the Care bike ride to benefit neurofibromatosis Northeast, Saturday, September 7th.
That's me, last man standing, right? Or last
Yeah.
man standing.
Have you had fun?
Oh, that's what you've been, you waited through all that? Oh, God bless you.
Okay, well, this route, we, start and finish at Stageport Park, and the route, there are 3 different options. There's a 25 mile, a 62 mile, and a 100 mile route, and your lovely town is on the 100 mile route, and I listed, I don't know if you have the letter that I wrote to Tracy, but.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
I listed
Yep, it's right
the
here.
town, the streets that are involved, and, we are really, because it's on the 100 mile route and people are going at various paces, it's not going to be a big group of people coming at once. It'll be in dribs and drabs throughout the day. I tried to approximate as best I could how I thought that the traffic was gonna be flowing through with the bikes, but, it's hard to say. We're not a big bike ride, we're trying to grow, but at this point in time, we're pretty small, so we thought about 50 riders would be going through during various points of the day, so.
May I?
Then not stopping on the green, or, water on the green, just going through town?
Rowley, the water stop is in Rowley, they're
Yeah,
literally
They're
just,
just going right through?
Yeah,
Yes, they are.
I don't have any problem with that.
Yeah, me neither.
That was my question. No medical stops, no water stops? Okay.
no, I am, just so that you know, I'm working with the, I think it's called CARA, the Cape Ann Radio Operators Association, and, because we start and finish at Stageport Park in Gloucester, they have been really, helpful, and they have, asked me to assemble a first responders meeting so that everybody, will be on board, and we have a plan of action, so that God forbid something happens, we will be ready and we will be able to take care of that. So I'm meeting, we need to schedule a couple of meetings with the Gloucester Police and Fire, and with this CARA, who so graciously agreed to help us provide communications on the route.
You will call our EMS and police also?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, you know what, I know every town has a different policy, and what I did was I started with the town administrator, and some of them have just written back saying that the selectmen have approved the request. Your town has asked me to appear. Other towns have asked me to contact the police and fire. Some have forwarded the information to police and fire, so.
Yeah, I'll forward it.
Okay, let me, and usually what happens is I either receive notification that they were okay with it, or if they have questions, then they get in touch with me, and I'm more than happy to
to speak to a police or fire chief.
That's fine.
If you were really gonna stage in our town,
Yes,
we'd probably ask you to get the okay from Mike.
and that's what Gloucester did. I mean, it was a much more stringent, process in Gloucester than it is here, and I understand that.
Okay.
But we just wanted you to be aware that that day, there'll be some bikers who have our jerseys on going through, and we didn't wanna slide it through. So.
Okay.
I mean, we could make a motion to approve pending approval from the police chief or something like that if we had any concerns on the police side. I mean, it seems like it's a pretty low-key
It does, yeah.
operation, and,
Yeah, I don't-
you know, some of
Well,
these
she
roads
made
don't get a lot
a
of
formal
trouble. so-
request, I mean, we're gonna sign it anyway, why don't you make a motion?
Yeah, I think notify them's enough, because how far do we carry? I mean, everybody drives through Newbury, we're gonna ask them to notify the chief, I mean.
Oh, no,
I mean, it's not like you're stopping and got all kinds of stuff
Right.
going on, just using the
Yeah.
roads, I don't have any
So-
trouble.
Yeah.
No, but you're gonna vote to approve?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Motion,
I'll make a motion to approve.
second, motion made and seconded, we approve the request, for this, northeast,
Ride of bikes.
yeah, right.
You don't like that word neurofibromatosis?
Yeah,
You know, it's a hard one. You know, where
Bike
else
thing,
it-
anyway.
have it roll off
All in
like-
favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you very much for sitting
Thanks,
through
Tony.
all
Thank you.
that. Was it an education?
I learned a lot. I love Middleton, so I go to selectmen's meetings, and it's always more interesting to hear other towns' issues than ours. Anyway, thank you so much for your support.
Thank you,
Right.
Sonny.
Okay, we've got a license renewal for Stella BMW Performance, 26 Middle Road, General Business Auto.
Motion to accept.
I'll second the motion.
Okay.
Everything paid up, Kath?
Yeah, Leslie wouldn't have given it to me if it wasn't.
Okay, motion made and seconded, we approve the license renewal for Stella BMW, 26 Middle Road. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it's a vote. All right, minutes of the 327 meeting, has everybody read them?
Yep.
What do you wish to do with the minutes?
Accept the minutes as read, as printed, as read.
Any errors or omissions? Okay.
Need a second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded, we accept the minutes, March 27th, 2013. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, aye. The next thing is the Byfield Days Committee request to close the intersection of Lenton Central Street to the intersection of Main and Central at 5:30 PM on Friday, June 7th, through 6 PM Saturday, June 8th, for the Byfield Days festivities, and Linda Allen has given us a letter. Yeah, I got it, I just have it. I just can't turn the pages fast enough.
Couple from the
I
end.
got it right here if you want.
That's right.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded, we approve the request of the Byfield Days Committee. Any other further discussion on that?
Been done before.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. All right,
Very important.
and then the request from Joanne Johnson for the issuance of a proclamation to honor Getty Gillette's 100th birthday.
Good Lord.
And there's a letter here from,
100.
on behalf of her family and friends, I would respectfully request that the Board of Selectmen of the town of Newbury issue a proclamation to honor her 100th birthday. There will be a party for her on 6/2, and a presentation at that time would be welcome. This request is respectfully made by Joanne Johnson, 1 Lanes End, Newbury, Mass. And I think this would be a good thing to send Joe to.
Actually, Joanne had talked to me, and she doesn't mind taking part in doing that also, if Joe doesn't. Kathy, have you done those before?
No. Only done a single page.
Right. I mean,
Do we have a Boston Post cane?
Yes, it's out.
Oh, it's out?
Somebody has it,
Oh.
somebody's older than Betty.
but I mean, one thing too is, I think Bruce does these 100.
Bruce does, yes. Somebody
Yeah.
could call Bruce and ask him if he could get, while they're in session. Now, you know, timing might be bad, and he may not be able to get it that quickly. You know, we had a problem the last time he was asked to do one, so
Now, who in town can, who can make something like this up?
I have no idea.
Yeah,
We need a nice templates for proclamations, right?
yeah.
Richie,
Never done
Richie?
it, so.
No, I mean, this might be something, I mean, maybe Tracy's got an idea that maybe they did them in other places,
Yeah,
maybe she's
sure.
got something.
We could probably find a template somewhere.
we can do it
'cause
too. And then if we do it, let's try to get this done, when is it?
6/2 is
We got a little time.
Yeah, let's try to,
Say this sometime.
we'll talk to Tracy, and then David will look a little bit, and then once we do it, we'll have it,
All right,
so,
it'll be on parchment, right?
wow, heavy duty,
All right.
Okay.
all right?
So-
Kathy, is there any communications?
None.
Okay.
So we didn't actually,
We have no warrants?
There's no warrants?
we didn't vote to approve the proclamation.
Huh?
We didn't approve we need to approve the proclamation.
Oh,
Did you make a motion?
okay.
I move that we approve the,
Second?
Okay, motion made and seconded, we issue the proclamation
Yep.
for Ms. Gillette's 100th birthday. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. All right. Communications, there's no any meeting updates? No meeting update. No executive sessions? Did we miss anything before?
I crossed
Citizens-
everything off.
Citizens' concerns, are there any citizens' concerns?
right,
That's it.
move to adjourn.
Motion to
Second.
adjourn.
Motion made and seconded, we adjourn, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.